The old mining village of Chopwell had long been abandoned by prosperity, but its soul was never truly silent. Deep in the heart of the northeast, its sprawling woodlands breathed with an eerie life of their own, a place where the mist never settled, and shadows moved even when the wind lay still. Locals spoke of strange happenings, the way doors slammed without warning, how objects floated, twisted, and shattered in homes long since emptied of joy. The poltergeists were restless, their rage unfurling like invisible hands tearing through reality. But it was the butcher's shop that held the village's darkest secret. Arthur Clegg had once been a kind man, known for his thick-cut bacon and fine cuts of lamb. But something changed. His eyes grew hollow, his hands trembled as he carved, and his smile, once warm, twisted into something grotesque. The villagers whispered of possession, of voices that muttered in the dark behind his shop, of meat that rotted too fast, as though rejecting life itself. And sometimes when you walked by at night, you could swear the slabs of beef moved, shuddering, with something unnatural. Then there was the Red House, a pub older than memory itself, standing defiantly at the heart of the village. The ale was strong, the laughter forced, but nothing could mask the unnatural chill in the air. At midnight, glasses shattered without cause, chairs scraped along the floor as though moved by unseen hands, and the cries of long-lost miners echoed through its halls. They spoke of tunnels that had collapsed decades ago, of men buried alive, forgotten by history, but remembered by something older, something hungry. One evening, as the mist swallowed the last of the light, a newcomer entered Chopwell, a skeptic, a journalist seeking to debunk the village's legends. He laughed at the warnings, dismissed the trembling words of those who had survived its horrors. But when he stepped into the Red House, the air thickened, the candle flames bent unnaturally, and from the back of the pub came a single, guttural whisper, "You shouldn't have come." By dawn, he was gone. They never found a body, only his recorder left on the butcher's counter, playing back his last terrified breath. And in the woods, the wind whispered his name. After the journalist's disappearance, fear tightened its grip on the village. The Red House stood emptier than ever, the locals choosing to drink in silence rather than risk disturbing whatever lurked beyond the glow of their candles. But the butcher's shop, that was where the terror truly festered. Arthur Clegg had become little more than a husk of a man. He hardly spoke anymore, just stood behind his counter, his knife slicing through meat with a precision that felt unnatural. His once strong hands were lined with deep, angry cuts, as if his flesh resisted the work he was forced to do. And some swore that the slabs of meat, those darkened, aged cuts, twitched when no one was watching. One evening, Sarah Lawson, a local school teacher, stepped into the butcher's shop. She had always been skeptical of the legends, convinced that fear made people imagine things that weren't there. But the moment she crossed the threshold, the air thickened. It smelled wrong, not just of raw meat, but of something deeper, something rotting beneath the surface of reality. Arthur barely looked at her, just turned and reached for a wrapped package behind the counter. His movements were stiff, mechanical, as though something inside him strained against his own body. "I didn't ask for anything," Sarah said, confusion creeping into her voice. Arthur twitched, his breath hitched, and then, in a voice that was not his own, he whispered, "Take it. You don't have a choice." The package was damp. It pulsed. Sarah fled, dropping the butcher's offering onto the cobbled street. By the time she turned back, the shop door was already closed, the windows impossibly dark. That night, as she lay trembling in bed, she heard it her name, whispered through the trees. The village had always belonged to the dead. It was only a matter of time before the living joined them. The village grew quieter, as if holding its breath. The air was thick with unease, and no one spoke of Arthur Clegg anymore, not openly. His butcher's shop was a blackened husk, but the presence that had gripped him hadn't died with the flames. If anything, it had spread. Sarah Lawson had been the first to feel it, the creeping sensation that something watched from the shadows, waiting. The whispers had followed her home, threading through the walls like ivy. Each night they grew louder, curling in the air like smoke. But she wasn't the only one. In the Red House, Joe the bar owner and his regulars Neil, Nigel, Fred, and Morris huddled in corners, their pints untouched. The once lively pub had become a mausoleum, its warmth drained. Every evening, just past 9:30 p.m., the pub's door would shake violently, as if something outside wanted in. Then, one night, the door opened on its own. Silence. A shape flickered in the dim candlelight, tall, gaunt, hollow-eyed. It looked like Arthur, but it was not Arthur. Every light blew out. When the light returned, the figure was gone, but on the pub's warm floorboards, dark footprints trailed toward the toilet, leading nowhere. Meanwhile, the woods continued to call. Children began waking in the night, murmuring in voices that weren't theirs. One boy, Jacob Henshaw, disappeared for hours, only to return with dirt-streaked hands and wide, unseeing eyes. He didn't speak, only pointed toward the tree line before collapsing. His mother found him drawing the same symbol over and over a jagged spiral, ancient and wrong. Sarah knew they had only one choice. They had to go into the woods. The villagers gathered reluctantly, clutching flickering lanterns as they crossed into the cursed expanse of Chopwell woods. Then a voice echoed from the depths, deep, rasping, familiar. And in the darkness the miners began to rise. The villagers stood at the edge of the woodland, their breath shallow, their lanterns flickering against the unnatural chill. The trees loomed taller than before, their gnarled branches twitching in the night air like skeletal fingers beckoning them deeper. Sarah took a step forward. Behind her, the others hesitated, but the voices in the wind whispered their names, calling them like lost kin. He was never the first. The whisper was everywhere, pressing into their bones, threading through their veins. As they ventured deeper, the mist thickened. Shapes moved within it, figures dressed in old miners' garb, their hollow eyes fixed on Sarah. The ground beneath her trembled, and from the earth came the sound of iron shovels scraping rock, the echo of pickaxes striking walls buried long ago. Then she saw it, a pit, a black maw in the center of the woodland, yawning open like the mouth of something starving. And inside helmets, rusted tools, skeletal remains stacked in unnatural patterns. The lost miners. They were never meant to leave. The earth groaned, the trees bent inward, and Sarah understood this was no mere haunting. This was a wound in time, a scar cut deep by betrayal and forgotten history. She reached for her lantern, raised it high, the flame flaring against the darkness. Behind her, the villagers followed suit, each lifting their light toward the pit. The shadows recoiled, twisting and writhing, shrieking in tones too inhuman to be real. Then silence, that pure silence. The mist cleared, The trees stood still. The pit was gone. Chopwell had been freed. Or so they thought. The villagers never spoke of that night again, but each one carried its mark. And when Sarah lay awake, staring at the ceiling, she swore she could still hear it. The whisper, the promise. They were never meant to leave. Some wounds never heal. The ghosts may have quieted, but the village will never be the same.